Hello and welcome to Talk the Line. I'm Jen Long. This is the new podcast from The Line of Best Fit, the UK's biggest independent website for new music discovery. You can check us out at thelineofbestfit.com. You can follow us on Twitter at BestFitMusic. And if you want to give me a cheeky follow too, I'm at Jen Long. Here on Talk the Line, we talk to musicians about the things that make them tick. Not about their music, not about the new album they've got coming out, but about the things that they're really passionate about that you don't often get to hear them really dwell on. Every week we go deep into conversation for around 45 minutes or an hour with some of the best, most interesting artists and celebrities around. And this week I'm talking to Johnny Flynn. Johnny Flynn was born in South Africa before moving to the UK at the age of 2. He then went on to sing treble in the Winchester College Chapel Choir. He had a music scholarship at a school there, which required him to learn 2 instruments, and he chose the violin and the trumpet. But he rarely played from sheet music. Instead, he preferred to improvise as he thought it was the most rebellious thing he could do. He actually moved to Wales in his mid-teens to an area that I know quite well, where my family are from, a place called St David's. And then he moved to London in his late teens at the height of new folks, the likes of Laura Marling, Mumford & Sons, Emmy the Great, and was really entwined in that scene, even though its name did make him feel slightly ill. He's released 4 albums to date. His most recent, Cillian, whose title he described as a crystalline gift of a word, is out now on Transgressive. He's described himself as a country bumpkin, and he caught his initial inspiration for music after buying a copy of the freewheeling Bob Dylan, aged 11, at his school jumble sale. He's also an actor. He's performed Shakespeare on the stage, and he fronts the Netflix original series Lovesick. He's also got a kid, a young son who's at school, so he's a very busy man. But he took time out to talk to me about something that he's really passionate about. He uses the term psychogeography. It's all about walking, about rambling, and about the philosophy of creating your own path. You on like a time frame for this or anything?
No, I'm pretty free.
Okay.
I'm good.
Great, so we can have a
just
long amble.
Not worry about it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, like your PR Sinead sent the email through saying, "Oh yeah, just like straight away."
Yeah.
Like usually when we're booking these things in, we're like, okay, what does this person like? What are their interests? And then they kind of have to dig deep, and they're like, oh, actually, I never knew, but they're really interested in X, Y, or Z. And just straight away, Sinead was like, psychogeography.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, fuck, I've literally never heard, I don't know what that is. I've never heard that word before.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't heard of it as an actual name for this thing that I'm into until quite recently. And Sinead actually presented me with a book called Psychogeography, and I was like, that's it. That's the thing that I like. You know, it's got a name. And there's one writer in particular that's been a really big influence on me, who I like reading and like have become friends with recently. So we make some voyages and talk a lot, and he's become a really great sort of mentor from afar and sometimes in proximity, called Robert McFarlane, who he writes books about a number of different things that sort of tie in with each other, and they're mostly about voyages and journeys, often on foot, and sometimes that tips into sort of journeys into the mind. And I think his voyages on foot are attempts to kind of go into his mind, into his psyche, and even maybe through sort of ancestral paths that exist within us through to our sort of forebears and people that came before us. And that's in a sort of in a literary and philosophical sense. So people that shared those same kind of ideas and who we've lit our torch from and kind of carried this, this burning idea around. and quite randomly things that just tie into that way of thinking, bits of writing and thought and ceremony and it's a pretty broad topic for me.
I know, we've just taken in a lot in the opening monologue.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the people, like the term psychogeography is probably like, that's why it only came to me quite recently, because I think it's like a modern term imposed on it, and it's a good one because it's to do with it's to do with the physical sort of geological maps, but also it's psychogeography, so it's like maps and pathways in our mind, and everything that goes into that. But the people that psychogeographers are influenced by are often people that were writing 100, 200, 300 years ago who wouldn't have had that term to kind of group themselves within or label themselves as, maybe people like, there's a poet called Edward Thomas who was killed on the dawn of the Battle of Arras in 1915 in the First War. 1915 or 1917, I can't remember. And so he's kind of primarily known as a war poet, and he wrote an incredible amount of poems about going off to France and going. And he was a volunteer. It was before sort of mass conscription, and he went up and he really wanted to go and tragically died. Like immediately, basically, was the first time he was posted in battle, I think. But what people don't know about him is that, well, they do, but it's less known, is that he wrote reams of poetry about his where he lived in England and the village that he lived in, and his rural landscape, and had a wonderful kind of lyrical sense of place. And weirdly, I went to school in the village that he lived in, and we used to go up to this memorial stone to him. We actually went there to go drinking illicitly. So he's been in my consciousness for a long time. But since then, I've gotten into his poetry, and it's really beautiful, kind of cracked subconscious sort of musings on rambling down these lanes in this village, and so I like him.
So just to take it like a step back into a kind of a dialogue that I could fully comprehend. I thought it was something to do, psychogeography was something to do with the way that the urban landscape impacts on how we move around it, or urban architecture. And there was I read something about how architecture shouldn't be considered art because we should find our art in the spaces outside of it.
Maybe that's what it is. I guess it's
But you think of it more as...
Well, I think of it as like not necessarily as urban landscapes.
Okay.
I think of it as like exploring all types of landscapes, and basically it's the relationship between place and feeling for me.
Okay.
Like loosely, but maybe I don't actually know what psychogeography means. So there we go.
How did the book kind of sum up your feelings when you were given that? I mean, what had you been doing or experiencing or practicing before you got that book that was of such interest to you?
Well, I was basically a few friends of mine growing up and myself got really into going on long walks on our own as like an intrinsic sort of part of it, and having kind of these quite long sort of meditative experiences on our own, which is it's quite funny, like, to claim it as a sort of group activity, because the bit about being on your own is quite important. So we sort of go off on our own and then share our experiences.
So you would all meet up, but then the walks you would be doing.
We wouldn't be. Yeah, it would just be like, I felt like it was kind of like we were really into the fact that each of us was going off and having these very unique experiences, and then when we were together, if we would meet up in a pub and kind of relate through, like the shared thing of like, oh, you've walked that pilgrimage route, or you've walked that long road from this place to this place. It's a bit like the fact that, we all, as human beings, we all fall asleep every night and have these dreams, but we have these kind of communal spirit experiences, but in isolation. So it's like, how can we relate through the experience of, like, we've all been on these long voyages, kind of thing. And with this guy, so in terms of the psychogeography thing, I guess maybe I don't fully understand what that is, and the kind of philosophy that I'm interested in is one embodied by this writer Robert McFarlane, who I know has been called a psychogeographer, so that's why I sort of assume that he's like part of that world. I'm
really not saying that you're right or wrong in any sense. Yeah. My understanding doesn't go past a couple of articles on Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, I think there is. I think that part of it for me, like, is if I go out rambling, if I walk through the marshes and along the River Lee and just like set a place that I'm going to try and get to, everything that happens to me on that walk is a sort of valid part of my journey, and every experience, every encounter, everything that I see, and that would include these urban environments. It's not about like trying to kind of get to like a perfect sort of idea of what nature is. It's embracing something kind of quite abstract in the landscape that you don't know you're going to experience until it's happening in quite a sort of resonant way with you. And the thing about being on your own and walking is that you get to a pace where you're experiencing it in a sort of moment by moment like basis, in the minutiae of all of that stuff.
Because I've walked up the River Lee a couple of times. It's not, in places it's not idyllic.
No, it's quite bleak. Yeah. I did that in reverse from out of London into London, with Rob McFarlane, and then we went and did like we did a joint lecture at St Andrews University, which was supposed to be a collaboration between writers and musicians, and he wrote some poetry and I wrote a song, and we like told the story of our walk in this lecture, and we projected images of the maps that we'd used, and we kind of charted our conversation as if we were sort of following the flow of a river, and then the different kind of memories that the conversation triggered in us, and the stories that we told each other were like, we saw them as sort of tributaries of the river that we were physically walking along. And that's kind of psychogeography. That's like taking like a physical route and then like mapping the avenues within your mind that kind of illuminates.
And does it also sort of take in, it's cartography maps, isn't it? That's the name.
Yeah, cartography is that's the map making bit. I mean, like yeah.
But I'm just guessing that you're not walking down the river with like Google Maps open on your iPhone. Being like, how long until we get there, Rob? Google Maps is saying 22 minutes.
Yeah. No. We actually, on that occasion, like we'd blown up some scans of like actual, proper like AA like walking maps or whatever. Ordnance Survey maps. But only because obviously, like, we're walking along a river, we can't get lost, but we wanted to know where, like, the old gunpowder mills were, and like where the reservoirs were, and we didn't want to do that by looking at our iPhones. We wanted to have, like, the sheet in front of us. It sounds like there's a sort of it's not. I guess the reason why I'm not interested in walking and having these, it's not because there's like it's not a game or a task that I'm trying to complete. It's not like today we're going to do psychogeography. It's like it's like the art of getting lost and being vulnerable to a flow of emotions and thoughts and feelings, which for me is really stimulating for being an artist.
I remember reading an article about how when tourists from Western cultures go away on holiday, they take with them their, like, our understanding of what constitutes a complete day. So you wake up in the morning and you go to work and you're like, okay, these are my tasks for the day, and you tick them off, and then you go home and you're like, done. We take that with us when we go traveling, when we go on holiday, and when we're exploring a new city. So we don't just go and wander around it and look. We go, right, okay, I'm in Paris, I'm going to see the Louvre, I'm going to see the Eiffel Tower, I'm going to see the Champs-Elysees. And then you go tick tick tick, Paris done.
I find that attitude really frustrating. Like, when I encounter it, I try not to be with anybody who has that approach to anything, because my thing would be to go to Paris and maybe to go, like, I'm gonna walk along the Seine and eventually end up here, but, like, if I decide to go in any which way, or, like, if I meet somebody who takes me, like, on the back of his bike to some rave or something, like, I'll do that. That's the primary, like, destination is experience. Right. That's, like, my rule for life, especially because so often in my life I'm literally being pushed into, like, in some direction by somebody, because I have to get to a rehearsal or or to wherever we're shooting, or on stage or something, or my kid needs picking up from school or whatever. So I like taking time to do these things. I feel like it's what I did until a certain age, and it's how I lived all the time, right? And how a lot of my friends did as well. And I sort of assumed that everybody did, and then I realised that I just had some really cool friends,
So were you living in London, or were you living in the village that you mentioned before that I don't think I caught the name of?
Oh, in Steep. No, I lived in London since I left school. So I had a gap year where I did a bit of travelling and did a bit of rambling with two other friends. We went in a camper van around Europe for 6 months, which was definitely an exercise in getting really lost. Like, we had some places that we were trying to get to, and it was before GPS and all that stuff, and our van was from 1976 or something, and kept breaking down, and we had to fix it ourselves because we had no money. That was probably the first big adventure that I ever went on, and set the tone, really. And those two guys that I travelled with are part of that kind of gang of people that like going out and getting lost.
I went when I was about 22. I drove a band around Europe in a van.
Oh, cool.
On a bit of a whim.
Which band was that?
They were from New York, and they were called Holy Hail.
Oh, okay.
I used to write for this magazine who'd been out and interviewed them, and they'd stayed in touch, and they were coming over to Europe, and they were supporting this Brazilian ballet funk rap group called Bonje de Rolê.
Wow, ballet funk rap.
Yeah, they had like a single, it was like Marina Gasolina. It was like in the days of New Rave.
Okay.
It was like 2007. Yeah. And so this band were flying over, and then some guy was going to give them some money for it or something, and then their funding got pulled at the last minute, and they couldn't afford to fly their driver out, and because they were all American, none of them could drive stick.
Right. Oh,
and so they needed someone to drive them around. I think they were all also a bit like, we don't really want to drive in Europe.
Yeah. That sounds like a cool adventure.
Yes, I just ended up jumping in the van and I guess I was technically the tour manager, but I was also like a 22-year-old dickhead that had never driven in Europe before, had never driven anything more than like a Ford Fiesta.
Yeah.
And I managed to lose the sat nav and my passport on the first night.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit. Oh,
but then,
what did you do?
We just went on an adventure, you know. Somehow we made it to every venue in time for load-in.
Really? How did you get home? Did you not need your passport?
I managed to get around the whole of Europe, the whole tour, without a passport.
Wow. I guess you don't need it for like driving between, Germany and France.
No, we did get I think I got pulled over once in Spain, but I just gave them my driving license and it was fine.
Yeah.
And then we got to Madrid and I went to the British Embassy and got an emergency passport.
You did? Oh,
and then got back into Britain.
Amazing.
Yeah, but that was that definitely not having a sat. I mean, we bought a sat nav eventually because it was getting a bit silly. But we drove around like Stockholm, not knowing how to get to the venue, and we were pulled over to the side of the road, and this kind of like half drunk builder kind of ended up getting in the van with us and taking us to the venue and telling us all about how his wife was cheating on him.
Right.
And it was just so bizarre.
And I bet that was kind of, I bet you remember every sort of detail of like what happened on that trip. Like if you went there and like retraced your steps. I don't think it's interesting. Like those are the kinds of experiences that I think are really like formative and important and good to try and like recreate as much as we can. Because
so you think I should recreate it? I should go back to Stockholm and
I don't know. I mean, like I just think that it's hard. It's quite hard to get lost nowadays because of. I don't mean just physically, because we've all got Google Maps on our phone or whatever. But But sort of like there's a safety thing that we all have. That's emotional safety. That means like I don't know. When I think of life before all of that stuff, like I think used to rely on strangers a lot more, and therefore you'd have more interactions, and you kind of like have to ask somebody for help, and I don't know, like directions, yeah.
But I feel like I've been in a lot of cars where you don't know where you're going, and I'm like, why don't we just pull over and ask for directions? Everyone's like, nope.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah,
but they're going to know where it is because they live here, you know? There's just this real, I don't know whether it's like maybe a British thing of not admitting defeat or not admitting that you got something wrong. You know, like when you get off the tube at the wrong stop, or you get on the tube going the wrong way or something, and you instead of just being like, fucking getting off, you kind of do like some little song and dance kind of number. You go, and you kind of make it look like something's happened, and you have to get off immediately, and not just that you walked the wrong way or something.
Yeah. Well, I think it's changed. I mean, I just think it's changed. I feel like we're slowly being re-hardwired, to kind of keep our heads down and not engage in our environment as much as we had to before we all had smartphones. Right.
I remember seeing some picture, I did see this on my smartphone, but it was like a meme thing, and it was like this picture of a train platform in the morning, and there's everyone's just head down, and there's just one guy out of this whole crowd who's just looking up, and it's just what the fuck is he looking at?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I feel like, there's maybe a relationship to the world that we're forging through our screens that is kind of has to come through a filter of a certain part of our brain that isn't like the whole and best version of ourselves. And I just think that like that isolationist sort of thing of like, it's because you can pick and choose like what you're looking at. It's about choice. It's your consumer self,
right?
The version of you that's looking at the screen, and that part of you is like very judgmental and very short-tempered and impatient and lacks compassion, I think. And I think that part of you is the one that might go like, there's too many people here, or I'm not, this type of person is this type of person that I don't like, or like, and that quickly kind of spins out into something hard-edged and politically divisive as well. Like, I think there's a relationship between, what's happening broadly in the world and the US election and Brexit and stuff, and that part of us that's evolving, not just in technology, but in the way our brains are being forced to operate, partly because of just like the amount of information we have to process. So we kind of like...
But it's like, it's addictive.
The phone thing.
Do you ever, I don't know how many like apps you have on your phone, but do you ever like open Instagram and then scroll down it and then you're like done and you close it and then you kind of just forget what you've done and then you open Instagram again and you're like, you literally just looked at this.
Yeah. I think, it's filler, isn't it? It's taking up the space in your brain that would otherwise be thinking like, I think I'll go and see what that building is over there, or that's for me is why it's quite nice having this framework of like always trying to go on these adventures, basically.
I feel like so much of kind of texts that existed for children that I think you and I probably missed or just caught the end of when we were growing up. The kind of books like the Enid Blyton novels, or what was it called? That William kid that was always getting in trouble.
Just William.
These like little kids that used to like go off and run off on adventures, and they'd have like a crazy time, and then they'd like come back home. And now to me that just screams stranger danger. It's like, I feel like growing up there was definitely a turn from children being free spirits and allowed to go out to like definitely not being allowed to go out unaccompanied, because the world is a dangerous place. And perhaps having that kind of proximity to so much information and so much news, and the most sensational news rising to the top, because that's, as you say, our consumer selves. We don't really want to be fed things that are just dull and everyday. We want something that will grab our attention and immediately make us go like, no, that's terrible. I hate that person. I hate this. Perhaps that is kind of ebbing away at the idea of, like, when you say, I'm just going to go out for a wander down the river in North London without anyone else or my phone. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get attacked.
Or it's just going to be really boring.
But that's the probability, is it? It's that absolutely nothing will happen. But I feel like just the amount of news
I think the thing is that, well, that's what you think, but actually I think so much more will happen to you probably than it would have done if you stayed at home and looked at your thing, or
what's going to happen to me, Johnny?
Got the bus rather than walked like you did.
I know, to be honest, that was just because I stayed out a little too late last night, and I am now old and constantly tired.
Wow. Yeah, no. That's the thing, isn't it? But I just think like I always like, if I can, always choose to walk places and like put my phone away, because I just know that things will happen, and like I also have this thing where I like look for opportunities to help people, and that's really fun. It sounds a bit kind of, I don't know, do-goody kind of, but like it's surprising how many people like need a hand, if you're walking down the street, and I think if you've like made the like real sort of mission statement, you know, put your phone away and be in that sort of state of alertness. It's really rewarding, whether it's like you know, I don't know, helping a blind person across the road or whatever, or helping somebody with their bag, or like
person across the road.
What have I?
You said?
Yeah,
Does that actually?
It happens, but I feel like people don't do it because they wouldn't notice. I think, and also, that 3 steps behind them is a blind person who might need a hand, or like.
But also, I think there's the other side to that, which is the side where you don't want to be knocked back, and the side where that person might want. Their independence might be important to them. They might want to
I think, well, in that instance, like, I think you can't presume that people need help. Otherwise, you might be like the Boy Scout that is just told to fuck off. But, like, there's a way of doing it that's like, it's fun interacting. Like, I now suddenly feel like I'm like doing a sort of public, like, safety and, you know, like one of those kind of government chats about
staying out the
how
yellow
to be
box
in society, but actually, like, I think it's like I don't know, like, we're kind of forgetting how to be our best selves. And I think about it a lot because, you know, you were talking about kids growing up with all these threats and stuff, but my son who's 6 is right at that age. Like, he is pre-technology right now. Like, he maybe watches like 1 cartoon a week, and his brain is totally different to mine. He's so free, and like. So
your kid doesn't have an iPad?
He doesn't have an iPad, no. I have an iPad. Sometimes if we're on a really long car journey and he's screaming at me, then I'll let him use my iPad, but only then. He doesn't have an iPad or a phone and we don't really watch TV. So he just plays and makes stuff, and he would ask for it all the time if we let him do it, but he doesn't ask because we don't let him do it. And he's such a healthy guy, you know. He's like, even though London is, you know, quite dangerous for a 6-year-old to go out in, you know, without unaccompanied, like, he's very adventurous, and like, there are places you can go, and living near the marshes, it's cool. He can go off on his bike and I'll be nearby, but he can, you know, I'm not too freaked out if he disappears around a corner or whatever, or climbs a tree and I can't see him for a bit. And I encourage that sense of adventure. I just think, like, we can sort of take something from that. That's my.
I like that, and I do kind of miss that. You know, I grew up in Surrey, but I spent a lot of time in Wales, where my family's from. I mean, and this is an absolutely terrible quote because I can't remember the source whatsoever, but I remember reading an article once about how we create these worlds for ourselves, and then all we want to do is escape them. So, you know, you create your life in London, in the city, and you're like, right, I want to live where all the action happens, and you know, I want to be in amongst it, and you build your little flat and your group of friends, and then all you do is save up to go away on holiday. And you're like, I just need to leave the city, I just need to get out, like, I need a weekend in the countryside.
I think that's why, I think I had that for a long time, and now I think the thing I love about living in East London and like around here is the diversity of experiences you can have, and I feel like I'm quite close to quite a lot of nature now with the marshes and the river and stuff, and not all of it is like really pretty and stuff, but that's kind of great as well. Like, it's how you frame it, and I feel more drawn to just a sense of home now, rather than like trying to kind of get out of the city, because a lot of my work now is off on location or on tour or whatever. So my pull is now to home and my family and my kids who are stuck in school. So it's like, we just leave all the time.
Yeah. But East London, you're right, it is such an amazing place, and there are so many different experiences that you can have, and it's so diverse. I suppose in that sense, the sense of adventure doesn't have to be outdoors, doesn't have to be open spaces, doesn't have to be nature. It can be urban as well.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by like engaging in our environment and like, you know, it's every time I sort of say this, you know, I kind of bore myself, but the whole thing like putting your phone away and like just like altering like one part of your like routine to try and sort of crack open your subconscious and experience your surrounding in a different way. I
suppose the closest I've probably ever gotten to doing this sort of, I suppose, to psychogeography now I'm thinking about it is running. So I guess it's similar to walking, it's just faster, right?
Yeah. But running is good.
Yeah, it's like I was in Dublin last week, and I was on like a boozy press trip, and one evening I was like, I'm not drinking anymore, I'm going to go to bed early, because I was like, I just want to get up early in the morning and just like go for a run around the city, and just see like different parts of it, because I think that whenever I go anywhere, I always try and take my running shoes so that I can just like go and see the city, and I find it's a really good way, because as you say, you're not looking at your phone, and I tend to go early in the morning when there's not as many people about, so you can kind of just run around. That's
definitely a good
areas.
Way to do it, I'd say. I trained for the London Marathon like 2 years ago, and I got to know the area around where I live so well, because every Sunday I would go for like a 2-3 hour run, and it'd be like all along the canal, or like all up at the River Lee, around the marshes, or like out around Stoke Newington, and just got to really know the area. And it's kind of amazing what's on your doorstep that you never even notice. And I think and I like that thing of investing and engaging in your community through that like ritualized experience, even if it is the same commute that you have to make every day or whatever, but like that person that you always pass at the same time, or the shopkeeper, or you know, whatever, like going slightly further with that person than we're sort of, you know, taught to, or like, you know, the way modern life exists now is, you know, that keeping your head down thing. And there's no, like, I've started to think that the antidote to this sort of divisive, faceless society that we live in is to make these kind of small personal contributions to pay into my community and the people that I meet on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone listening now who's thinking, I quite like the sound of psychogeography, I quite like the idea of going out and getting lost, either in my community or my surroundings, or further afield, because I suppose it's getting lost physically to a certain extent, but also getting lost mentally and taking a break and taking your headphones out and listening to the...
there's different ways of thinking about it. It might not just be about like getting lost. It's sort of unblocking these pathways physically and emotionally and philosophically that you didn't know existed. It's kind of like having the faith or the courage to kind of say, like, I don't know anything. I'm gonna go out into the world with that sense. And I guess I don't. I mean, I don't know maybe there is a much more literal sort of term, psychogeography, that has implications, but that's what it is for me.
And what's the name of the writer that you mentioned?
Robert McFarlane.
Right. Okay.
And he's got a series of books that are about walking, really. One called Mountains of the Mind is the first one, and then The Wild Places, and then The Old Ways. And they're all kind of slightly different sort of emphasis on the same theme, which is going out into nature. And he's been influenced by people like Edward Thomas, who I was talking about earlier, who was a nature poet and then a war poet in the early 20th century. And there's a Scottish writer and philosopher called Nan Shepherd who has spent her life walking in the Cairngorms in Scotland. And she has this really nice thing that she said, which is that when she goes, when she walks into the hills, it's not that she walks up the mountains or along the mountains or to the mountains. She walks into the mountains, and in saying something like that, I think she's conjuring this like idea of what's the word, of like traversing something in a way that isn't immediately like apparent, like by looking at it, like, you know, walking into the mountain, and it's a so the mountain is an idea rather than like an object, and an idea has no end. So she's going deep into herself and into her environment to know herself. And Robert has these wonderful questions like, what do I know of myself that I can only know in this place? And then, like, rather perversely, what does this place know of me that I can find out if I ask this place?
How do you do you keep records of the walks that you've been on?
Well, I wish I could go on more trips, to be honest, but I mean, I guess the thing is, like, I've been on a few like epic walks and sort of pilgrimages and things, but also to try and carry that, as we've been talking about, carry some of that energy and momentum into kind of everyday life and working life. That kind of openness, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, I do I guess as an artist, if I can call myself that, like, there is a real like impulse to document the walks. Like, for instance, in 2009 or something, I spent 3 weeks walking in northern Spain along this. There's a famous old pilgrimage route.
Wow.
That there's several routes, and they all end up in Santiago, which is the town in northwest Spain in Galicia, where they have the bones of St. James, who's Iago in Spanish, I guess. And it's an old kind of Christian like pilgrimage route, but it's walked now by people of all faiths and for lots of different reasons. And I definitely didn't do it like as a Christian, but it's really great because there's quite clear kind of way markers, and you don't need to have your phone, and you don't need you don't even need a map, really.
Got some signposts,
sort of, but like there's different routes, and the one that I chose is one that is one that isn't done very often by people, and it goes through the mountains, and it was the original way. It's called the Camino Primitivo, which means like the first or the original way, and it goes through the Picos de Europas and through the Asturias mountain ranges in North Spain. And I was on my own with a one-man tent, camping up in the mountains with a fire every night, and having like a sort of terrifying sense of isolation, and which was really exhilarating. And there are still, like, they're very rare, but there are still bears in that part of North Spain, and wolves, and lots of wild boars. So like I had a strong sense of nature around me, and I was like actually quite scared sometimes at night. But
there noises and howls and
yeah. There was one the very first night I spent in my tent. I was up a mountain and camping by a river there was a little clearing by the river, and I was very naive, and I'd like cooked a can of beans on the fire or something, and I was feeling really kind of like, oh, this is going to be great, you know, like I'm up a mountain, I've made it, you know, and went to bed, and just like as soon as I'd fallen asleep, I was woken up by a low growling sound, and I was in my tent, you know, it's a really lightweight one-man tent, and it's quite sort of close to the ground, and it's green, and I just kept thinking like, this animal, whatever it is, because I don't know what it is, can't see it, I can't move, because if I like rustle and make a sound, it might get alarmed and like maul me. Hopefully it doesn't know that I'm here, you know, like, but of course it did, and then it started prowling around, and at one point it sort of stepped very close to where my head was, and my body kind of rolled into the dent that it was making in the leaves. So I was thinking, shit, it's like definitely really big, whatever it is, a bear or something. And I still don't know what it was, but I was so terrified, and my mind went to a place that was like, it was like, this is the devil, you know, like this is the worst, this is evil incarnate, you know, because I was so full of fear. I'd never experienced that kind of darkness before, and I didn't know what to do, you know. And then I was convinced I was going to be like eaten alive, and I got to this, and then eventually I basically got to this really calm, like kind of accepting place. I don't know, like something about encountering a wild animal that is much more terrifying than a person, because a person kind of adheres to the rules that you understand because you're a person too, and so you can, and even if they're insane,
reason, you can speak, you have a shared language,
you hopefully might be able to
or
reason.
At least some kind of shared,
you can pay them off, you know, or something. But like, so I you know, I just thought like, this bear, I'm not going to be able to like do anything, you know, or wolf or whatever it is. And I think it's kind of cool that I never found out what it was. It went away for a bit, and then I went outside and I realised, I was like, you idiot, you left the food out. Right, and, so I tied that to a tree miles away, went back, lay down, and then it came back. And then this kept happening, and I suddenly remembered like, oh, bears won't come after you if they know you're there. That's why when you're walking in North America, in places where the birds are, you sometimes wear bells on your shoes, because if you warn them that you're coming, they'll just run away, they're scared. But if you suddenly surprise them, if you come around the corner and there's a mother and a cub, then she'll just lash out because she'll defend herself. So I made a lot of noise and flashed my light around and stuff, but it kept coming back. And it was almost like, it was kind of, after a while it became kind of ceremonial and like a ritual. Like, if you can get to a place where you accept this situation and kind of surpass the fear and you know, embrace it, then you'll be okay. And I sort of did. And I ended up sleeping with like a knife in my hand, which is the only thing I had, a small knife and my head torch. And I got through the night, and I woke up like a new made man. It was the start of my trip, and I was like, I survived. I don't know what that was, but I'm here, and everything is glistening and fresh and new, and I'm so happy. So that was really good. I kind of think that's like the epitome of the sort of experience that like I might be looking for.
Suddenly psychogeography is seeming less attractive to me.
Cast yourself into the...
You've done quite a lot of exploring.
A little bit.
Is that the most adventurous one that you've been on?
That was the longest one that I went on my own. Right. I did a trip with a friend who also is really into walking in Turkey, also along an old pilgrimage route, and that was quite hairy at times. Because there are wolves in the mountains in southern Turkey, and we suddenly realised like that we were quite exposed to these wolves, and
Wolves are like a big thing in Europe now, like a big issue.
Really?
Yeah.
Coming back.
I was reading an article in The Guardian.
Yeah.
I was reading an article about them in Finland, I think, because it's like rural farming towns which are having all their livestock destroyed by wolves, but wolves are a protected species. So you can't kill them unless they are a direct danger, I think. And then they've been doing wolf culling, but there's still actually only a really small number of wolves in the area. So there's a big conversation over whether whether they should be culled.
Yeah.
And people in the cities going. I mean, I suppose this exact same argument happens across many countries, but the people in the cities going, no, we need to protect the wolves, and the people in the rural communities who are directly affected by them going, no, they're eating all our livestock, let's kill them.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, isn't it? There's a lack of balance between you almost feel like 500 years ago that problem would have just sorted itself out, because there's enough space for the wolves to have their bit of land, and then if they strayed into places where villages and farms were, then like the villagers would be within their rights to protect their livestock and kill some wolves. But it's a difficult one.
So I think you're within your right to worry about the wolves on your pilgrimage.
Yeah. Well, you can hear that. Like we lie awake at night, listening to them howling, and just think, "Fuck, we okay?"
They don't generally attack people though.
Right.
From what I've read.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is, I probably would be singing a different song if I were in a tent around a pack of them.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I think it's the idea of them. But I'm less afraid, like, having had those experiences. I'd be kind of I'm quite excited about going back, just because there's that roughness to the experience, and it's not safe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. I hope that's okay.
No, it's good. I'm not going to put my headphones on now. I'm just going to go out into the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no phone, no headphones.
I think it's good.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
I really enjoyed that conversation. What a beautiful and inspiring young man, Johnny Flynn. A big thanks to Johnny for taking the time out to talk to me, and also to Sinead, his PR, who set it all up and gave him that book on psychogeography. Don't forget, you can follow us at Best Fit Music on Twitter. You can follow me as well at Jen Long, and please subscribe to this podcast if you want to hear more. We update it every week or so, talking to a brand new artist. Next week, I'll be back talking to Nadine Sharp all about mental health. This is Talk the Line. See you soon.